everybody, welcome to the show. Holy shit, where am I at? Wow. So yes, I told you graphical changes incoming, and they are here. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Got a great show planned for you guys today. We've got a lot of different things we're going to talk about. We got net neutrality, we've got fake news, we have the Republican tax plan, and we have an interesting poll about millennials and how they feel about both parties. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be surprised about that. Nonetheless, we're going to have some fun today. We're going to start out with an interesting fake news poll, which is actually going to be a lot of fun. So you're really going to enjoy that. And then we get into more serious stuff, especially the network news, cable coverage of net neutrality. I think that's a really important thing to talk about. So that's what we're going to do. Other stuff that's not really prepared for the show, but I want to give a quick comment on John Conyers is in the hospital. John McCain is voting yes on the tax bill. That spells disaster. So those are a couple of things that I wanted to mention. And of course, Conyers has been dealing with his own sexual harassment allegations as well. So that has me, of course, upset. So I'm really bummed what happened. So, and of course, Al Franken's 6 accusers, also disastrous for Al Franken. So guys gotta go. All right. Now, all that aside, let's start out with some of the news stories. Before I do, please make sure to give us a like and a share if you haven't already. And if you want to support the show, patreon.com/TYTNation. That's how you can help out. That's how you can donate to the show. There's other ways as well. There's through the YouTube Super Chat. That helps us as well. There's been a lot of you that have been doing that. And I can't be thankful enough. So thank you so much. All right. Now, that said, let's go into the stories. Let's start out. We'll have a little fun at Fox News' expense. Just kind of gave it away. Hold. Wait for it. Wait for it. Transition. We have graphics. I'm having way too fun. Way too much fun. Because I spent like way too much time setting this thing up. So, and I'm going to try out different backgrounds and stuff too. So let me know what you guys think. All right. All right. Hold. Now, earlier this week, President Trump, in one of his usual tweet storms at the media, suggested that we all have a contest that will award something called a fake news trophy. Now, that's interesting. I covered this on Monday, and like I said, I had a lot of fun at Trump's expense. Now, this was the tweet that started it. He said, we should have a contest as to which of the networks, plus CNN, and not including Fox, that's going to be very important here, is the most dishonest, corrupt, and or distorted in its political coverage of your favorite president, me. They are all bad. Winner will receive the fake news trophy. Well, hey, look, I said, hey, it's a pretty interesting idea. Why don't we do that? I'm not the only one who thought that this was an interesting idea. It turns out there's a polling agency that actually turned this contest into reality. So, without further ado, who was the winner? Who was the most dishonest, corrupt, and or distorted in its political coverage of President Trump? You're not gonna believe this. You better sit down for this. It's Fox News. According to this new poll, a plurality of Americans think that Fox News deserves the first fake news trophy in existence. That is awesome. So now look, you're probably thinking, yeah, but it's probably from one of those left-wing fake news think tanks, public policy polling or something like that. MSNBC poll, Politico, ABC News, Washington Post. Oh, of course they're all going to be biased against Fox News. I mean, they're all fake news, right? Well, where this poll comes from is actually a conservative-leaning Rasmussen poll. Oops. So there's no bias in this. If anything, the bias would be actually more conservative, although Rasmussen, I think, does pretty well, does it more down the middle, although they might kind of oversample Republicans here and there. But hey, look, Democratic groups also sometimes oversample liberals as well, to be fair. So, no, this is Rasmussen. This is a right-wing polling organization. And even then, they found that a majority of Americans think Fox News is fake news. I love it. Now, let me give you the numbers here. Now, they found about 40% of respondents think that Fox News should get this fake news trophy. That's 40%. The second place winner was CNN, that actually received about a 25% support. So 40 and 25, that's a fairly huge difference. It's not like this is close at all. Now, MSNBC followed CNN with 9%, and ABC, CBS, and NBC all received less than 5% support for the fake news trophy. That is fucking hilarious. That is awesome. And poetic justice, man. I mean, they did their own conservative poll and found that Fox News is still the biggest name in fake news. I love it. Now, I was going to say something else, but let's go with the breakdown of the demographics. Okay. Now, 53% of Democrats and 42% of voters not affiliated with either major party said that Fox News deserves this fake news trophy. Just 24% of Republicans feel that way, while 40% of Republicans think CNN deserves that award. So, look, there's no surprise on the Republican part. I mean, I'm sure you guys already know, Republicans live in an alternative reality where everything other than Fox News is literally fake news. So, there's the results from that. Now, look, for those people, look, you can try, but you can't escape reality. Sooner or later, it's going to bite you on the ass. And in times like this, or examples like this, it does so hilariously. So, hey, man, you wanted a fake news trophy contest? You got it. Well played, Rasmussen. Well played. All right. Let's move on to the Republican tax scam. We had to have a laugh before we realized how much we're getting fucked. All right. Now, with the Republican tax plan coming up for a vote very, very soon, time is running out to put a stop to a plan that will literally hand trillions of dollars over to the richest Americans. So, and now you might think, okay, look, I know it's going to give a lot of tax cuts to the rich, but it's also going to give us a tax cut. And by the way, Republicans keep telling me it's going to create jobs, right? They keep saying, oh, no, don't worry. These tax cuts, it's going to spur innovation and growth, and they're going to create jobs, and it's going to be great for everybody. It's going to literally trickle down in your head. Well, not so much. I've got some bad news for you guys. According to Bloomberg News, major companies, including Cisco, Pfizer, and Coca-Cola, said that even if they get the tax cuts, well, if they do get the tax cuts, most of it is going to go right back into their pockets. Now, instead of hiring more workers or raising their pay, Bloomberg writes, many companies say that they will first increase dividends or buy back their own shares. So they'll be doing basically what they call stock buybacks. Now, Robert Bradway, chief executive of Amgen Inc., said in an October 25th earnings call that the company had been, quote, actively returning capital in the form of growing dividend and buyback, and I'd expect us to continue that. This is it. This happened, of course, while they were continuing to do the discussion on the tax cuts. Now, executives including Coca-Cola CEO James Quincy, Pfizer Chief Financial Officer Frank D'Amelio, and Cisco CFO Kelly Kramer have also made similar statements. Quote, we'll be able to get much more aggressive on the share buyback after a tax cut, according to Kramer, who said in a November 16th interview. So, make no mistake, these companies, these corporations are telling you that if you give us tax cuts, we're not going to create jobs. No, are you kidding? No, we're going to take that money and we're going to put it in our pocket. we're going to buy back our own stock, which has the effect of raising share prices and actually also removing some shares from the market, which benefits shareholders, which the majority of happen to be executives in the company. I mean, that's part of executive compensation. So instead of giving the CEO a gigantic pay raise, which they do obviously as well, they will give, in order to skip some taxes, they'll give stocks as an incentive, right? Now, of course, the higher that stock value goes, well, the more it's worth, the more money these people end up getting. Look, that's why you see right now the stock market going up exponentially. They're looking at these corporations are looking at this, Wall Street's looking at this, and they're salivating, man. They're like, give me those tax cuts. You know why? We're going to use all that money to inflate our stock price, and we're going to get even richer. That's why, all while, of course, you will end up paying more money in taxes after a decade. Yes, there are temporary tax cuts, but again, those are temporary. But the tax cuts for the rich, they never go away. They will be permanent, going from 35% to 20%. Do you know how much they pay now? They pay 14% in effective taxes. So that is their effective rate. And again, that's what most of these corporations end up paying. That's actually far less. Now, they say, of course, well, look, there's going to be, we're going to close the loopholes. And so they're actually going to end up paying more in taxes. You don't think they're going to carve in new loopholes? That's exactly what they do. So every time they say, no, what we're going to close loopholes. We're going to broaden the base. Corporations will actually end up paying more. Donald Trump's going to end up paying more. That's not what happens. They're always ready to carve up a new loophole so they can continue to pay even less in taxes while you end up paying more. That's what this whole thing is about. This is redistribution of wealth to the top. Now, they call that socialism, right? But this is socialism for the rich. That's what this is. Now, the Tax Policy Center has said that people making under $75,000 a year will end up seeing their taxes go up within the next decade. While the super wealthy, of course, are going to see a gigantic tax cut, and when it blows up the deficit, which it will, there are certain triggers that will come into play that will end up cutting social services. In fact, there's already a stipulation where it's going to end up doing an immediate 25% cut in Medicare. And there are other programs also. There's going to be students that are going to be just absolutely fucking destroyed. You're going to have people who rely on student loans. You're also going to have grad students that are going to be hit a lot. So, man, this is a boondoggle. Okay, this is going to crush the middle class. This is going to crush the working poor. All in an effort to give more and more money to the rich and gigantic multinational corporations. This is not what people want. Okay. Now, John Shin, this is a foreign exchange strategist at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, told Bloomberg that companies are sitting on a large amount of cash. They're not actually really financially constrained. See, one of the reasons that they want to push this tax cut so hard is that they're claiming, well, these corporations, I mean, they're struggling, man, under the boot of the government. Under these taxes and regulations, these companies can't create jobs. That's why they need this corporate tax cut. Well, right there, here's a bank saying, actually, no, we're not constrained at all. We've done a study of all these different corporations and found that they're just sitting on mountains of cash. They're not constrained whatsoever, but they're not actually doing anything. So the question is, why are we going to give them gigantic tax cuts? Well, again, it's redistribution of wealth to the rich. These corporations want more, so they bribe members of Congress to give them these enormous tax cuts at your expense. Not to create jobs, but just to fill their own pockets. And here are the companies flat out admitting that, yes, we are not planning to create jobs. All we're going to do is we're going to do stock buybacks. And that's it. Now back to Shin. He conducted a survey of more than 300 companies, which asked their plans for a tax overhaul. And he said that, quote, after talking to these shareholders or these companies, they said, look, the companies are just working for their shareholders. They're not working for you. Now, there's another part of this bill, other than the gigantic corporate tax cuts, which is disastrous. It would be very devastating for the federal budget. And this is the tax holiday. Now, companies right now hold about $2 trillion in cash overseas. They want to bring that back. They want to repatriate the funds. Well, we did this before back in 2004. Over 90% of the money that was brought back here ended up doing, again, stock buybacks and executive compensation. So what was the benefit for that? The government got stiffed on money that it was rightly owed by these companies. Now, Shin said that corporations this time around are also most likely to pay down debts and repurchase shares with the proceeds of this new tax holiday, which would be mandatory. Only 35% of companies total said that they might use the money for capital expenditures. So, look, stock buybacks, as I said, it's one of those financial tricks to go and increase executive pay. They don't need to create jobs, and so they won't. There's no incentive for them to create jobs. They create jobs when there is more demand. Well, how do you get more demand? You actually put money into the pockets of the working class and the middle class. But unfortunately, the middle class and the working class have been squeezed. The middle class has shrank. And wages continue to be stagnant after 30, 40 years of basically trickle-down economics, Reaganomics. So, look, man, we have to come to the realization as a country that we cannot continue to cut taxes for the rich. Tax cuts do not create jobs. They do not create growth. There are some situations where a tax cut might actually do a little bit of growth, right? We are not in that situation. In fact, Janet Yellen was talking about that earlier. She's like, look, we have full employment and we're almost at 3% growth. We don't need another tax cut on the rich. All this is a big sloppy wet kiss to Wall Street. That's what this is about. So, Republicans, what they're trying to do with this tax cut is they are selling you a lie. Okay? This is for the benefit of the corporations and not for you. This is the politicians giving a return on investment into the millions of dollars in legalized bribes that they get from the donor class. It's a scam of the highest order. And it's right in your face. And they're going to pass it with impunity. And there might not be a damn thing that we can actually do other than, what, get your pitchforks? Now, I hope it doesn't come to that. But if they pass this, it's going to be an epic disaster for the country. And it's going to have long-lasting damage. So, look, call your senator, call your representative, tell them, don't pass this bill. It is deeply unpopular. We saw it with the fight for the ACA, the repeal and replace. We saw this happen. We saw that when people are engaged, when they put a lot of pressure on their politicians, then something might actually happen. So continue to fight and, try to make it so they don't pass this tax cut. And if they do, well, then in 2018, we've got to get ready to crush them at the ballot box so we can hopefully reverse this disaster of a tax bill. Okay. We got another tax cut story. Now, Republican support continues to solidify over the tax scam that will essentially cut trillions of dollars from taxes for the very rich, while giving a temporary, at best, tax cut for the middle class. Now, the latest news, of course, is that John McCain and Lisa Murkowski are now a solid yes when it comes to this tax bill. Apparently, it's got everything that they want in it. They don't care about the effect that it's going to have on regular people, especially in a decade. So, hey, man, look, I ain't worried about it. I got to give my donors back money. We shouldn't be surprised, right? I mean, this tax bill reads a lot like a Christmas wish list, right, than an actual piece of legislation. Now, case in point, right? So this bill lists the 1954 ban on political activism by churches. What does this have to do with cutting taxes? What does that have to do with spurring economic growth? No, this is, hey man, look, these social conservatives, these hardcore right-wingers, these on the religious right, we want churches to now do political activity. The whole point of tax-exempt status, by the way, is so that churches, in exchange for not doing political activity and not paying taxes, could do charity, right? No, instead what they're going to do, once they get the ability to do political activism, is they're going to take that money, instead of helping the poor and the needy and things like that, no, what they're going to do is they're going to buy politicians, which are going to enact straight-up Sharia law-like bullshit. It'll be Christian Sharia, so I'm sure right-wingers will be super okay with that. They believe in the same things, man. They're exactly the same. Now, another part for the social conservatives is that this confers a new legal right for fetuses. So basically undermining Roe v. Wade. So wonderful. So this is their Christmas list of bullshit that they're putting into this tax plan. And again, this has the capability of passing. So, I mean, okay, so there's the Republicans, right? Well, what about the Democrats? Now, look, Dinocrats, right? What do they have to do with this? Well, I mean, look, no Democrat would ever think of voting for this tax bill, would they? Oh, no. According to new reports, Senators Joe Donnelly, Heidi Heitkamp, and Joe Manchin have now signaled a willingness to support Trump's tax bill. That is, of course, the Republicans were willing to meet with them and other so-called moderate Democrats to discuss specifics. So here's the centrist corporate Democrats saying, ooh, Trump, hey, I want to cut taxes for my donors too, for these corporations. Please come meet with us. That's insane. According to the Associated Press, the senators told Trump that they could convince enough Democrats to get 70 yes votes on the bill if Republicans were willing to negotiate. Well, look, they've shown that they have no willingness to negotiate. In fact, they did everything they could to try to cut Democrats out of the deal by passing it through reconciliation. It's all to avoid, of course, Democratic filibuster. So that's what they're doing. They intentionally leave Democrats out. But here comes these corporate Democrats saying, I'm going to run over to the right wing because I love the right wing and I want to deal with you. Let's make a deal, Trump. Let's make a deal. Now you might be thinking, look, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe they could convince the Republicans to strip out some of the worst parts of the bill, like maybe some of the pro-life stuff, and I don't know, maybe make it so that the tax cuts are permanent on the middle class and the working class. Okay, maybe. But look, in my point of view, the entire bill is garbage. This is nothing more than a gigantic tax cut for multinational corporations and the rich. It's a transfer of wealth from us to the very, very wealthy, the people who already have all the money. Now, those same corporations that we find out, of course, are funding these same Democrats. Now, Senator Donnelly, for example, according to the Center for Responsive Politics, has received about $400,000 in campaign contributions from the securities investment industry this election cycle alone. Senator Heidi Heitkamp has received more than $463,000 from the investment industry as well, and another $400,000 from the fossil fuel industry. And Senator Joe Manchin has received over $276,000 from the securities and investment industry. Of course, these industries are massively in favor of these gigantic tax cuts. So, wonderful. Now, these three senators also are from states that voted for Trump. Now, the thing about that is that the banks and corporations are widely seen as having too much power, too much influence, even by Republicans. Now, Trump himself ran against the global financial elite. And yet, here's the financial industry that are salivating. They can't wait to get these gigantic tax cuts. And this is nothing more than a sloppy wet kiss to Wall Street, the banks, and multinational corporations. The oligarchs are loving this. So, I mean, for example, their tax cuts are permanent. The corporate tax cut will permanently go down to 20% from 35%, while your tax cuts, well, I mean, yeah, we're going to give you something, and then in a decade, they're going to run out. And then you're going to end up paying more in taxes. If you're making under $75,000 a year, which, again, that is over the median. So most Americans fall around $53,000, $55,000 a year. So a lot of Americans are going to get tax increases. In fact, there's also another provision in here as well that will end up making you pay more. And that's the elimination of the individual mandate that will essentially destroy ACA markets. Now you're thinking, wait a minute. You're getting rid of the mandate. The mandate actually does a penalty on us for not getting health insurance. How would that cost us more? Well, as more people pull out of the insurance market, since they don't actually have to buy insurance, for the people who do have insurance and want insurance, they're going to end up paying more. That's just how this works. The whole point of getting more people into the insurance pool is to lower prices. And so this is, of course, going to lead to the reverse. So you're going to have higher insurance premiums. That's going to default. That default will significantly increase insurance costs, as about 13 million people will lose their health insurance if this bill passes. So they've destroyed the ACA. Not only that, but there are mandatory cuts in Medicare. So people who are on Medicare, the elderly and disabled, they're also going to lose out. And yet, as I said that before, the oligarchs, the top 1%, will make out like bandits. But wait, Jeff, isn't this supposed to create jobs and we're going to have such great economic growth? That's what President Trump, that's what Republicans keep telling us. No, actually not. And I'm not the one who's saying that. The CEOs of the top companies are saying that. What they say that they're going to do with the money is that they're going to do massive stock buybacks and executive bonuses. And again, they've done this before. In 2004, they did a tax holiday, and 90% of the gains went right into their pockets. And every time we cut taxes, we have seen no growth in jobs. It doesn't work. This is a fallacy. Trickle down is a lie. Now, to see Democrats thinking about supporting this massive giveaway is absolutely disgusting, and I actually believe that corporate Democrats are worse than the Republicans. I mean, they've got the audacity to claim that they're serving the people. Oh, what are you talking about? We're for the working class, for the middle class. We're Democrats. We're here to protect you. No. They don't serve the people. They're serving their donors while hiding behind the Democratic Party. We need to get them out. Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly, Joe Manchin. We got to get you out. Your time is up. We're coming for you. And any other Democrat who we find that is not serving the people, we're coming for you too. Get ready for 2018, man. I can't wait. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We got more shows, so don't worry about that. Stay right here. All right, everybody. Back and around the nation. I want to remind everybody, please give us a like and a share. It helps us continue to get found on YouTube whenever we go live. Since apparently notifications don't seem to be working, I've been reading a lot into the chat, and some people are not getting notifications, so I don't know what the hell's up with that. YouTube, man, whenever they mess with stuff or implement new features, something breaks. So, I don't know, man. So just know that we go live every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you're here at 3 p.m., you don't need to find the notification. We'll be right here. Check us out in the main page, youtube.com/TYTNation. Okay. So let's roll into the next story. We're done with the tax stuff, but we do have some stuff about a new poll that I think a lot of you might be pretty interested in. All right. We're done with Dinocrats. All right. Now, during the 2016 election, well, let me start that again. During the 2016 primary, millions of young people came out to support Bernie Sanders in his run against Hillary Clinton. Now, Bernie Sanders ran a campaign based on the issues of income inequality, student loan debt, universal health care, a higher minimum wage, and many other issues that are actually really important to younger voters, very important to millennials. Now, Bernie Sanders is also one of the longest-serving independents in the country, which, of course, infuriates establishment Democrats and amuses me greatly. Why isn't he a Democrat? Why is Bernie Sanders not a Democrat? Why doesn't he join the Democratic Party? He's not even a Democrat. I love seeing that. Look, hey, there's a reason for that. And it turns out the Democratic Party is actually really unpopular. Not only that, but the Republican Party is also super unpopular. And look, a majority of people who supported Bernie Sanders, people who are, who were longtime Democrats as well, they're not interested in the Democratic Party, but especially millennials aren't interested as well. And again, they're not interested in either party. Now, this is according to a new poll from NBC News and Gen Forward. Now, it reveals that a majority of millennials, about 71%, aren't interested in either parties and actually want to create their own third party. Now, 59% of them have unfavorable views of the GOP, understandable, but 42% also have unfavorable views of the Democratic Party. So again, they're looking at both parties and they're like, yeah, guys, but I ain't interested. You both suck. And there's a lot of good arguments to back that up. Now, look, these people are not interested in basically what we have is two right-wing parties in America. And I say that since the Democrats have been chasing the Republicans further to the right since Bill Clinton. So the Democrats right now are a center-right party. They're what the Republicans used to be before they went off a cliff and joined the extreme far right and suddenly thought, hey, you know what? You know who's cool? The KKK and Nazis. Ugh. That's not where millennials want to be. Okay, what we're seeing right now is a complete rejection of the two-party duopoly and what we have for two right-wing political parties. Now, that's not to say that the parties are exactly the same. That's not what I'm saying at all. There are actually varying degrees of difference between Democrats and Republicans, even though they are essentially both to the right of the American people. Look, both of them serve corporate interests. Of course, it's due to the fact of our political system and how it's based on campaign contributions, okay? Those corporations, they pay members of Congress on both sides in order to carry out their agenda. That's actually like super smart in a system like this. If you allow unlimited money, then of course you're going to want to play both sides, because in the end you end up getting what you want. And in their case, deregulation, which Bill Clinton did, for example, in telecommunications and banks, and you're also going to get deregulation from the right in the form of getting rid of environmental regulations and things like that. And again, both parties love to deregulate the banks for some reason. Oh, right, it's because the banks give billions of dollars in campaign bribes to politicians all over America. So that's what's going on here, right? Now, there is differences, though. It's easy to point out what's the same in the parties, but there is also some differences. The current Republican Party wants to put a boot on the throats of the working and middle class. Democrats, at best, they pretty much ignore the issues of working people. And wow, that was bad. Look, every once in a while, the Democrats will throw you a bone in the form of, like, hey, let's do a meager minimum wage increase that isn't going to impact corporate profits too much, because, and you know, it ends up that minimum wage increases actually help businesses as well, because they end up making more money because people have more money and they want to spend more money. So let's do these token things. Look, when's the last time you saw a Democrat stand up for a union? President Obama said he was going to put on his walking shoes if they went after union rights in Wisconsin. That didn't happen. We've got right to work in Wisconsin. We've got right to work laws in Michigan, which we all know those right to work laws are basically a right to work for less. So it's not much of a difference. I understand that. But one is actively trying to destroy and crush the middle class and the working class and labor, and the other just doesn't give a shit. So now on regulations, Democrats are also in favor of some regulations, yes, even though they do work a lot with Republicans to eliminate regulations, but Republicans want them all gone. Let the corporations fleet themselves. What's the worst that can happen, right? I mean, we've seen that happen before. We've seen what happens, and it's not pretty, okay? But on economic issues, there is a lot in common that the Republicans have with the Democrats. It's true. On social issues, though, there's no contest in who's better. The Republicans are barbarians. Still, both parties are corrupted by money, and there's a lot of millennials that look at that, and they're like, we're not interested in two corporate parties. What we want to do is create a viable third party. Now, there is a couple of problems with that, and I hate, bursting the bubble, because I actually think it's a great idea, and actually really do support a third party option, a progressive party. But the system right now is wildly stacked against that. Now, for example, I would love to see a progressive People's Party, right? However, our system is perpetuated it perpetuates a two-party system. We would have to tear the old system down and reform it before we can even think about a third party. And again, I'm in favor of that. Sure, let's tear it down and build it up and reform it. That's what I want to do. And there's a lot of people that want to do the same thing. But it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of work. And we can't just cede ground to the Republicans in the meantime. So we actually have to do something. And I think the Democratic Party is pretty much our only viable option of getting to do something in the meantime until we can take over that system. But the message here, really, from millennials to Democrats is, look, you do not represent us anymore. People like Feinstein and Pelosi, for example, in California, the most liberal state in the country, they are out of touch with their own voters. They are not even remotely progressive or liberal. And there's no reason that there should be a corporate Democrat in a wildly progressive state like California. We should have a progressive representing a progressive state. Why don't we? Why don't we? And I think this is part of the frustration with the Democrats, as well as the corruption in the party that was, of course, exposed during the 2016 primary. It's no surprise that people want nothing to do with a party that has shown such open disdain for them. Again, a third party. Look, I want to take over the Democratic Party, as I mentioned before. You guys know this, right? I don't really classify it as Dem enter. It's more like Dem infiltrate and take over. So that includes you get in there and then you gut all the corporate Democrats and you throw them out of their ass. You take it over. This is not nice. I'm not being polite. This is, if you're a corporate Democrat, I'm kicking your ass out. You're gone. We're taking over. So that's what I'm looking for, right? Now, some of you, again, you're not going to agree with this, and that's fine, right? Again, I told you I support building a third party, but the reason I think taking over the Democratic Party will actually be useful to you as well, to those who actually do want to create a viable third party, is that, look, you can use the party that, the power that it currently has in order to change that system to make a third party more viable. So that's, I think, only going to be possible if we have a complete takeover of the Democratic Party. Now, it may not work, and I understand that. You know, Dem infiltrate might not work. That's why I also support an outside force that is going out there and building that third-party infrastructure. But I think for 2018 and 2020, that is our best shot. And why this should matter to the party leaders is that, look, millennials are going to be a very, very important part of 2020. We're the biggest voting bloc. And we're pissed. So if you want to win, you're going to need the energy of millennials. And if you want millennials, you're either going to have to start reaching out to us, or, well, no, not either. You're just going to have to start reaching out to us and actually doing policies that we can support. We can't play this, yeah, but the Republicans are worse. We already know the Republicans are worse, but you know what? We haven't been doing great under Democrats either. So do something. Do something, okay? Reach out to us. Again, we are the most liberal group in America. That is the most liberal generation in America that has ever come. So we got to do something, okay? You got to do something. And if you do things that we don't approve of, that we don't like, for example, working with Trump to cut taxes for the rich, well, then we'll be coming for you. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, we're done with your shit. Okay. All right. Speaking of Democrats, who are pissing me off, let's talk about Joyanne Reed. Drink here. And Jane Sanders, the wife of Senator Bernie Sanders, went after MSNBC host Joyanne Reed after she tried to use Jane to go after her husband. So this is some old-fashioned Twitter drama, right? Now, Reed was apparently in a Twitter conversation early in the day about the credibility of men in positions of authority starting to crumble amid a wave of sexual misconduct allegations and consequences against men in high-profile positions. Now, look, in that discussion, I think the premise is completely sound. I don't have any problem with that. I actually agree with her that, yes, the credibility of men in positions of power is starting to crumble. It is being questioned, and that's a great thing. Men are actually starting to be held accountable for what they do. Wonderful. I mean, for example, you got Matt Lauer, you got Harvey Weinstein, Roger Ailes. There's a lot of different men who have been accused by multiple women of abusing their authority. And because of that, there is a reckoning going on. And sometimes it goes after, it ends up hitting people that you thought you knew and that you like or you liked and respect. And that sucks. And it's tough, right? But such is the price of progress for women. And of course, at the end of the day, I don't think you can put a price on that. If you abuse your authority, I'm sorry, you're done. I don't care who you are or how much I liked you before, you gotta go. You cannot be in that position of authority. Now, anyway, while I agree with her premise, here's where she goes off the rails. One of Reed's followers suggested that Bernie Sanders be used as an example of a credible male authority figure. Reed, however, disagreed. Now, I think he actually is a great example. He's a man who's been fighting for women his entire life. He's pro-choice. He wants to close the wage gap. He wants to ensure paid parental leave and child care. His policies are actually incredibly pro-woman. Wonderful. Now, Reed, of course, as I said, she completely disagrees. And she tweets out, I get that he has a hardcore following, but his own attitudes towards women, from his weird early writings to his physical dismissal of women in his presence, including his own wife, make that an incredibly dubious prospect. Huh. Now, wait a minute here. Dismissal of women. What is she talking about? Ironically, I am now going to dismiss her. Not because she's a woman, but because she's flat out wrong. Now, for one, Reed talks about these early writings, right? Of course, we're talking about the rape essay, right? This is that 1972 essay that Sanders wrote in a Vermont newspaper. Now, the whole purpose of this essay was to challenge gender norms. Obviously, it failed in doing so, or at least gave ammunition to people who are enemies of Bernie Sanders. Now, I can see how people could take what was in that essay as somewhat problematic. The one line that keeps getting presented is, quote, a woman enjoys intercourse with her man as she fantasizes being raped by 3 men simultaneously. Now, look, you read that and you're like, oh, that's cringy as fuck, okay? But that's also one line by itself without context. And when you take it without any context, it doesn't matter. It sounds bad. Okay. Now, Jane Sanders, she responded to that, and as she was, of course, named by someone who was routinely dismissed by her husband, by saying, quote, I didn't answer your biased reporting about Bernie during the last 2 years, Joanne Reed, but don't ever use me to demean my husband. Damn. She says, she further says, I'm very happy and very proud to be Bernie's wife. Your perception couldn't be more wrong. Have you ever talked with him? You've never spoken with me. Jane, she doesn't have to. Look, she's already been instructed by her higher-ups to demean Bernie Sanders and progressives at any cost. Bernie Sanders and, people who support him, like myself, are threats to the establishment. Joanne Reed works for the establishment. She is part of that establishment, and what she's been turned into, and it's been really sad to see, is that she's been turned into a hatchet man whose rants against Bernie Sanders are borderline pathological. She has an intense hatred of Bernie Sanders and people who support him, people who are progressive. She is not in favor of progressive policies. Medicare for all, the fight for 15. She has shown that she is against those very same things that would actually lift not only women up, but African American women, African American men, people in general. And by fighting against Sanders and the progressive, and his progressive supporters, you're fighting against progress. You can't call yourself a progressive if you're not in favor of progress on these issues, if you're not in favor of these issues. Now, look, if you want to take a slower approach to those issues to eventually get there, I guess I could understand that, even though that's not my position. I think we need bold, radical change. She's not even doing that. She's taking the corporatist position, and she's shilling for the establishment. And so it's very, very sad, too, to see somebody who's talented and who has a significant following devolve into somebody who's basically does bullshit establishment hackery. Very, very sad. But look, this is what happens when you rock the boat and you go after those people in power. When you go after the establishment, they use whatever they can to target you. And look, there is some good news to this, right? And that's that these attacks are not working. Bernie Sanders is still the most popular politician in America. His net favorable ratings are higher than the Democratic Party. They're higher than Hillary Clinton. They're higher than Joe Biden. They're the highest in the country. Again, the most popular politician in the country. These bullshit attacks are not working. People are not buying it. And they're not interested in things, in establishment hacks like Joanne Reed. So credit to Mrs. Sanders for defending herself and her husband. And again, why don't Why doesn't Joyanne Reed just sit down and have a conversation with Sanders? Instead of attacking him day in and day out, why not actually have a conversation with him? He believes in progress. He believes in helping America. And I don't understand how you can't see that, other than the fact that you don't want to see it. Okay. One more story here. Net neutrality. The fight for net neutrality is based a lot on public opinion, right? I mean, that's what the whole comment period was for the FCC, for the public to go and weigh in. Apparently, they want to know what you think about net neutrality rules and whether you want to repeal them. Now, of course, the last time they tried this, there was an overwhelming response, millions of comments sent to the FCC, which was under Tom Wheeler, that said, hey, protect net neutrality. Right? So again, public opinion is very important in this fight, as well as the information on how it would impact the internet at large. Now, public opinion, while still in favor of net neutrality, has for some reason dropped recently. Now that's very interesting though. There's a recent poll from Politico and Morning Consult that was released on Wednesday that found that only 52% of registered voters now support net neutrality regulations. That is still a majority, but it's a bit of a drop. Now, 18%, by the way, said that they do not support net neutrality regulations. So there's a large group of people in there that just have no idea. That actually will be very important as we go on with the story. Now, those findings indicate an 8-point decline in support for net neutrality rules since the survey in June, when 60% approved of net neutrality rules. Now, that survey found, remember, the new one says 18% of people do not support net neutrality regulations. In that old poll, 17% did not support. So you had a very, very modest uptick of about 1% saying, I'm against net neutrality. I actually want to pay more for internet. Now, those are the people that, of course, have bought the propaganda from Comcast and AT&T. And, you know, the Trump administration saying, no, don't worry about it. This is actually going to help the internet. Well, how is paying more for internet access and Facebook, social media, etc., how's that going to help? Well, they can't come up with an answer for that because they don't have an answer. They actually have to lie about it. Now, the interesting thing is, look, 8-point drop, but it isn't actually as bad as it looks. It lost support, but it barely gained any opposition, right? And as far as party lines, this is actually one of the rare issues that both Democrats and Republicans are actually still in favor of. Among registered voters, 55% of Democrats and 53% of Republicans said in the latest survey that they still support net neutrality rules. Again, Republicans don't want to pay even more for internet than they already do. That seems very obvious. Yes, they like internet freedom as well. They like the fact that conservative voices are also treated the same as liberal voices on the internet. Now, there are some conservatives that are like, no, I just want my voice on the internet. So yes, I would love to crush progressives. I would like to crush freedom of speech. Again, very ironic. And your freedom to access internet sites without being slowed down or blocked or things like that. Okay. Now, look, the poll results, I think, are a lack of information. I mean, this is what I think is creating this such low level of support, even if it is a majority. Now, despite the change in polling results, Morning Consult said the research suggests that net neutrality has just not captured the nation's attention. Huh. Now, this is from Kyle Drop. He's Morning Consult's co-founder and chief research officer. And he said that only 46% of Americans say they've heard a lot or some about net neutrality recently, compared to 67% who talked about who've heard of tax reform. 7 in 10 said that they've heard about the sexual misconduct allegations against Roy Moore and Al Franken. So, look, one of the biggest issues for information, for online business, consumer rights, That's not being talked about in the media. Now, this to me says, like I said, the decline in support is because there's very few people talking about it. Everybody's distracted with the next Trump tweet and the next person getting caught for sexual assault and all that stuff. I'm not saying that that's not important, but this is also a really important issue that I think supersedes that of, Al Franken, even though what I think he did was absolutely wrong. But now, you're not going to be shocked here for the reason that why no one talks about it. The cable news happens to be ignoring this issue. Surprise. Based on an examination of television segments aired on major news networks since November 20th, the day Politico reported that Ajit Pai was planning a total repeal of net neutrality rules. The study found that NBC, ABC, and CBS have devoted just over 2 minutes combined on net neutrality. 2 minutes. Look, and you wonder why most of the country has no idea what's in store for them when they lose net neutrality, or if we lose net neutrality. Of the major networks that Media Matters examine, and look, I've had problems with Media Matters in the past, but I think on this, they simply looked at the numbers and they're like, wow, these cable companies are not talking about net neutrality whatsoever. This happens to be very, very important. Now, of all the major networks that Media Matters looked at, MSNBC did offer the most coverage of the FCC's plan to attack the open internet. Now, Media Matters observed that NBC, which has not covered net neutrality at all, and MSNBC are both owned by internet service provider Comcast, which stands to benefit from the repeal. Now, it mentions MSNBC, it mentions some of the others, but I want to give you all the numbers here, the ones that are looked at. From November 20th to November 27th, that was the time that they looked, CNN had devoted just 9 minutes to net neutrality, while Fox News actually devoted more time to net neutrality. But I wonder what side that Fox News ended up on. Now, MSNBC did do the most coverage, so credit to them. But wait, not too much credit, because over that week, they devoted just 46 minutes of coverage to net neutrality. NBC, as I mentioned, didn't cover it at all. ABC devoted a half a minute, and CBS just over 2 minutes. Is it any wonder why so many people are uninformed when it comes to this very, very important issue? This is an accident. As Media Matters mentioned before, both NBC and MSNBC are owned by Comcast. This is the same company that's planning on doing paid prioritization of internet lanes. Meaning, we're going to charge you more for faster speeds. Now, not that it actually will be faster, and that, of course, is a very important distinction to point out. They're just going to find a way to slow everyone else down and then open up these so-called fast lanes, which will actually be no faster than what you have and pay for already. So that's how they plan to screw you. Slow everyone else down, put in the fast lanes and say, hey, man, extra $10 a month if you want to access that content. Or if you want to start accessing YouTube and, Facebook and whatever, well, you need to pay extra. That's the whole plan here. And look, these cable companies, they own the ISPs, so they've got a dog in this fight. As I said, they stand to make a killing once net neutrality is repealed. And their entire plan, I think, rests on ignorance of this issue. They're hoping that nobody notices that Pi will gut the free and open internet and then hand it over to them. Now, that plan also relies on people being confused about what net neutrality actually means to them and how it will impact them in the future. Comcast and these ISPs, they continue to claim that they don't need the rules because they don't plan on doing any of the things that these rules block. But why then go after the rules? That's really weird. No, I promise I'm not going to set your house on fire Just don't pass a law that prevents me from setting your house on fire. That seems weird. Why would you want to get rid of that law? I don't understand. It's because they want to get rid of the rules. They want to set your house on fire. Not literally, but look, these are highly profitable companies, right? Comcast CEO made $36 million in 2015. Now they claim that they need to eliminate these rules so that they can invest, right? They already have so much money available to them to invest, but they don't want to invest in more high-speed networks. Again, because they don't need to. They have no competition. One of the biggest problems here with pricing is the fact that we've got regional monopolies. One or two cable companies or a DSL company, whatever, are in one area. You think they're going to compete and lower prices? No, they're going to work together and be like, hey, we're going to jack our prices up. You do it too. You do it too. And then we both win. Again, no real competition. That's why we need municipal broadband, which is actually cheaper and faster. And it's what a majority of the other countries who have cheaper, faster internet actually use. You wonder why South Korea has blazing fast internet at a fraction of the price? It's because they have municipal broadband. Because they don't let these giant corporations control the means of access to the internet. Okay, so all they want to do is they just want to make money, right? They want to make more money off of you. They want to squeeze every dime that they can from you. And repealing net neutrality will allow them to do just that. Okay? And so here's what we got to do. We got to flood the commissioners with calls and emails. You got to tell them, you got to let them know that we do not want them to repeal net neutrality. This is one of the most important fights that we can have. And the mainstream media, of course, refuses to cover it because it's in their financial interest not to. If anything shows you the value of the free and open internet, is that small-time operations like us are actually giving you the stories that the mainstream media refuses to tell because of those financial interests. We can't let them take that away. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. You guys are awesome. Thank you for supporting us. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. Also, please subscribe if you want to see more streams and more videos. We put out videos every day of the week, so check us out. Thanks to the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation for supporting us. You can be a patron too and help keep us going. So thanks, everybody. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.